The fluorescent lights of the hotel conference room hummed overhead as James Merrill checked his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. 9:47 p.m. The keynote speaker droned on about pharmaceutical distribution models, and James felt his eyelids growing heavy. He'd flown 600 miles to Phoenix for this 3-day medical supply conference, leaving his 8-year-old son Danny and wife Jocelyn back in Portland. The separation never got easier. His phone buzzed in his pocket. James glanced at the screen, unknown number. He normally ignored these, but something made him step out into the hallway. "Mr. Merrill?" A woman's voice, strained with concern. "Speaking. This is Carmen Ryan, Danny's teacher at Riverside Elementary. I'm so sorry to call this late, but your son showed up at the school about 20 minutes ago." James's stomach dropped. "What? That's impossible. School ended 8 hours ago. He should be home with his mother." "Sir, I understand, but he's here." He was banging on the front doors. The night custodian heard him and called me. "Mr. Merrill, Danny is barefoot. He's shaking. He won't tell us what happened, won't speak at all. And his shirt." She paused. "His shirt is covered in something red. I don't think it's blood, but I can't be certain." James's mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. "Is he hurt? Have you called the police?" "He doesn't appear physically injured, but he's clearly traumatized. I wanted to contact you first before involving authorities. I've been trying to reach your wife for the past 40 minutes. Her phone goes straight to voicemail. I'll try her right now. Keep Danny safe. I'll call you back in 2 minutes." James's hands trembled as he dialed Jocelyn. Voicemail. He tried again. Voicemail. 3 more attempts, all the same. His wife's phone was off, or she was deliberately ignoring it. At 10 p.m. on a Thursday, with their son missing from home, he called his father-in-law, Leonard Klein. The man answered on the first ring, his voice crisp and alert despite the hour. "James. What is it?" "Leonard, Danny's at his school. Something happened. He's not speaking, he's traumatized. I can't reach Jocelyn. Have you heard from her?" A long pause. "Too long. Not my responsibility, James." The line went dead. James stared at his phone, the words echoing in his mind. Not my responsibility. His grandson was in crisis, and Leonard had hung up on him. He called Carmen back. "I'm in Phoenix. I can't get back until tomorrow at the earliest. My wife isn't answering. Can you stay with him?" "Of course, but Mr. Merrill, he can't stay here all night. The school closes at midnight, and he needs proper care." James scrolled through his contacts with shaking fingers, past colleagues and acquaintances, until he landed on his sister. Elena Merrill lived in Salem, roughly 2 hours from Portland. She answered on the second ring. "Jimmy? It's late. What's wrong?" He explained in rushed sentences. Elena didn't hesitate. "I'm getting in my car right now. Text me the school address. I'll take care of Danny." "Elena, I can't thank you. Family takes care of family. Always. Now let me drive." James tried Jocelyn 17 more times over the next hour. Nothing. He called the house phone. No answer. He called her best friend, her mother's old number, even her gym. Each dead, and twisted the knot in his stomach tighter. At 11:30 p.m., Carmen texted, "Elena arrived. Danny's safe with her. He still won't speak, but he's holding her hand. We're going to her house." James tried to focus, tried to think rationally, but his mind kept circling back to that one detail. Danny's shirt covered in red. And Jocelyn's phone, dead silent. And Leonard's cold dismissal. He booked the first flight out of Phoenix for the next morning, but a storm system grounded all departures until Saturday. The soonest he could get home was Sunday afternoon, 3 agonizing days away. Those 72 hours stretched into an eternity. Elena sent photos of Danny curled on her couch, clutching a blanket, his eyes vacant. She'd gotten him to eat some soup, but he still wouldn't speak. She'd gently washed the red substance from his hands and arms. Paint, she confirmed via text. Just paint. But that somehow made it worse. Why was his shirt soaked in paint at 10 p.m. on a school night? James finally reached Jocelyn on Saturday morning. Her voice was flat, distant. "Where have you been?" he demanded. "Danny's been with Elena for 2 days." "What the hell happened?" "I don't know what you're talking about. Danny's been difficult lately. Probably ran off for attention." "Attention?" "Jocelyn. He showed up at school barefoot at 11 p.m., covered in paint, and he won't speak." "What happened in our house?" "I wasn't home. I had dinner with my father. Danny must have snuck out." The lie was so smooth, so practiced, that it sent ice through James's veins. You're lying. Don't you dare accuse me of. Your father said Danny wasn't his responsibility. How did he know about it unless you told him? Which means you knew Danny was missing and did nothing. Silence. Then, we'll discuss this when you get home. She hung up. Sunday's flight landed at 3 p.m. James drove straight to Elena's house, a modest craftsman in a quiet Salem neighborhood. His sister opened the door before he could knock, her face grave. He's sleeping, she whispered. Finally sleeping. Jimmy, we need to talk before you wake him. They sat in her kitchen, and Elena slid a manila folder across the table. I went to your house yesterday. Used the spare key you gave me. You need to see this. Inside were photographs. James's hands shook as he flipped through them. His home office, completely ransacked. File cabinets open, papers strewn across the floor. But that wasn't what made his breath catch. It was the basement. The finished basement where Danny had his playroom had been transformed. The toys were shoved into one corner. The center of the room held an art easel and canvases, but these weren't Danny's child paintings. These were adult works, crude, sexual, disturbing. Empty wine bottles lined the floor. And in the corner, Danny's small closet door had fresh scratches on the inside, as if someone had been clawing to get out. There's more, Elena said quietly. She handed him her phone. A video, taken from her camera as she walked through the house. In the master bedroom, men's clothing that wasn't James's. Expensive cologne on the dresser. And on the nightstand, a bottle of pills prescribed to someone named Kirk Booth. I checked the home security footage from your system, Elena continued. The files from Thursday night were deleted. But the system backs up to the cloud every 6 hours. I recovered some. She opened her laptop and showed him. The footage was grainy but clear enough. Thursday evening, 7 p.m. Jocelyn arrives home with a man James doesn't recognize. Tall, mid-40s, expensive suit. They go to the basement. An hour later, young Danny comes down the stairs, probably looking for his mother. The man, Kirk Booth, James assumes, grabs Danny roughly, drags him to the closet. Jocelyn stands by, watching. They lock the closet door and return to their activities. The timestamp shows them leaving at 10:30 p.m. 15 minutes later, Danny emerges from the closet, his shirt covered in paint from when he knocked over supplies trying to escape. He runs upstairs and out the front door. James couldn't breathe. His wife had let her lover lock their son in a closet for 3 hours while they... There's more you need to know, Elena said. Her voice was steel now. I did some digging on Kirk Booth. He's a corporate real estate developer. Very wealthy. Very connected. And he's married to Leonard Klein's business partner's daughter. That's how Jocelyn met him. The pieces clicked into place. Leonard's dismissal. His cold, not my responsibility. He'd known about the affair. Probably encouraged it. Kirk Booth represented money and status, everything Leonard valued. They tried to erase the evidence, James said slowly. They knew Danny would tell me. So they deleted the footage and coached Jocelyn on what to say. That's what I think, Elena agreed. The question is, what are you going to do about it? James looked at the photos, at the video, at the evidence of betrayal and cruelty. His son had been locked in a closet, traumatized, sent running into the night in bare feet. And the people responsible were trying to sweep it under the rug, confident that their money and connections would protect them. Something cold and calculating settled over James. He'd spent 15 years building a successful medical supply business through careful planning and strategic thinking. He knew how to identify weaknesses, how to build leverage, how to execute a plan perfectly. I'm going to destroy them, he said quietly. All of them. But not quickly. I want them to feel it. Elena studied her brother's face. She'd seen him focused before, but never like this. There was something almost frightening in his calm determination. What do you need from me? Everything you found. And your silence. No one can know what we're planning. Not yet. They hurt Danny. They hurt my nephew. Elena's jaw tightened. I'm with you all the way. James stood and walked to the bedroom where Danny slept. His son looked so small curled up in Elena's guest bed, his face still pale and drawn. James sat on the edge of the bed and gently brushed Danny's hair back. The boy's eyes fluttered open. For a moment, fear flashed across his face, then recognition. Dad, I'm here, buddy. I'm here now. Danny's lip trembled. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I ran away. I was scared and I didn't know what to do and... Shoo. You have nothing to be sorry for. Nothing. What happened wasn't your fault. Mom said, she said you wouldn't believe me. She said if I told anyone, they'd take me away from you. James felt his rage crystallize into something pure and focused. Your mom was wrong. I believe you. I believe every word. And no one is taking you away from me. Ever. Danny threw his arms around James's neck and finally, began to cry. James held his son and let him release the fear and trauma of the past 3 days. Over Danny's shoulder, he caught Elena's eye in the doorway. She nodded once. The war had begun. James spent the next 2 weeks building his case with the precision of a surgeon. He returned to Portland and moved into an extended stay hotel with Danny, claiming the house needed fumigation. Jocelyn barely protested, too busy with her own activities to care where they stayed. He hired Glenn Grant, a private investigator who owed him a favor from years back. Glenn was former FBI, now freelance, with a reputation for thoroughness and discretion. This is ugly, Glenn said after reviewing Elena's evidence. But legally tricky. The security footage shows neglect and endangerment, but a good lawyer could spin it. We need more. Then get more, James said. I want to know everything about Kirk Booth. Every business deal, every secret, every skeleton in his closet. And I want to know how deep Leonard Klein's involvement goes. Glenn worked fast. Within a week, he had a file 3 inches thick. Kirk Booth wasn't just a developer. He was a predator with a pattern. 3 previous affairs, all with married women in his business circle. 2 harassment complaints from female employees, both settled quietly with NDAs. A pending lawsuit from a contractor claiming Kirk had sabotaged a rival's project through bribery and intimidation. But here's the interesting part, Glenn said, spreading documents across the hotel room table. Kirk's company is leveraged to hell. He looks wealthy, but he's drowning in debt. His investors are circling, threatening to pull out. He needs a major project to close in the next 60 days, or he's bankrupt. What project? A commercial development in Northwest Portland. 3 city blocks, mixed retail and residential. But it's been held up for 18 months in regulatory hell. Someone's blocking the permits. Glenn smiled. Want to guess who sits on the city planning commission? Leonard Klein. Bingo. And guess whose company stands to make a fortune in fees if the project goes through? James studied the web of connections Glenn had mapped out. Leonard was using his position to leverage Kirk, probably demanding a cut of the profits in exchange for pushing the permits through. The affair with Jocelyn was likely part of the arrangement, Leonard pimping out his daughter to secure the deal. What about Jocelyn? James asked. What's her angle? Glenn's expression darkened. Your wife maxed out 3 credit cards you didn't know about. She's $60,000 in debt from online shopping and spa treatments. I think Kirk promised to pay it off if she played along. So everyone had a motive. Kirk needed the development deal. Leonard wanted his cut. Jocelyn wanted her debts erased. And Danny had been collateral damage in their schemes. James felt sick, but also oddly clear-headed. Understanding the enemy's motivations was the first step to defeating them. Can we prove the corruption? He asked. Not yet. But if Kirk gets desperate enough, he might do something stupid. Desperate men make mistakes. Then let's make him desperate. Over the next week, James began to execute his plan. He used his business connections in the medical supply industry to reach out to Kirk's investors. Innocent questions, casual mentions of irregularities, hints about pending lawsuits. Nothing actionable, nothing that could be traced back to him, but enough to create doubt. 2 of Kirk's major backers requested emergency audits of the development project. Meanwhile, Glenn fed information to a journalist friend at the Portland Tribune about the suspicious delays in the Northwest development permits. The resulting article didn't name Leonard Klein directly, but it raised questions about possible corruption in the Planning Commission. The pressure mounted. Kirk's company stock began to slide. Investors whispered about pulling out. And Leonard Klein found himself suddenly subject to an ethics review by the city council. James watched it all unfold from his hotel room. Danny safe beside him working on homework. His son had started speaking again, slowly opening up in therapy sessions. The therapist had documented everything, building a record of emotional trauma and neglect. Dad, Danny looked up from his math problems. Are we ever going back home? Not that home, buddy. But we'll have a new home soon. A better one. Without Mom. James chose his words carefully. Your mom made some choices that hurt you. I can't let that happen again. So we're going to live somewhere else. Just you and me and maybe Aunt Elena sometimes. Danny nodded slowly. Okay. I like it better with just us anyway. The simple statement broke James's heart and strengthened his resolve in equal measure. On a Wednesday morning, 2 weeks into his plan, James received a call from an unknown number. "Mr. Merrill? This is Detective Sarah Walsh with Portland PD. I need to speak with you about your son." James's pulse quickened. "What about him?" "We received an anonymous tip about possible child endangerment at your residence. I'd like to meet with you and discuss the situation." Anonymous tip? From whom? James's mind raced through possibilities. Had someone noticed Danny's absence from school? Had a neighbor seen something? Or was this part of Jocelyn and Kirk's counter-move? "I'm happy to cooperate," James said carefully. "When would you like to meet?" "This afternoon, if possible. 2 p.m. at the station." "I'll be there." James immediately called his lawyer, Patrick Goldberg, a family law specialist Elena had recommended. Patrick had been on retainer for a week, waiting for James to make his next move. "Don't say anything without me present," Patrick instructed. "I'll meet you at the station at 1:45, and bring all the evidence Elena gathered." At the police station, Detective Walsh turned out to be a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with a no-nonsense demeanor. She led James and Patrick into an interview room. "Mr. Merrill, we received a report that your son Danny was found at his school late at night in a distressed state. The report also alleges that you've been keeping him out of school and away from his mother for over 2 weeks. Can you explain?" "So that was the play. They were trying to make him look like the bad parent." "Detective, I'd like to show you something," James said, sliding Elena's folder across the table. 3 weeks ago, I was at a conference in Phoenix when my son's teacher called me. Danny had shown up at the school at 11 p.m., barefoot, traumatized, and covered in paint. His mother's phone was off. She didn't answer for 2 days. My sister rescued him and documented what she found at our house. Detective Walsh reviewed the photos, the security footage, the therapist's notes. Her expression grew darker with each page. "And you're saying your wife and Miss Kirk Booth locked your son in a closet?" "The video shows it clearly. 3 hours. While they..." James couldn't finish the sentence. "Danny ran away in bare feet because he was so terrified, and my wife tried to cover it up." Patrick leaned forward. "My client has documentation of everything. Medical records, therapy sessions, witness statements." Meanwhile, his wife and her associates filed a false report trying to paint him as the negligent parent. "We have evidence of an ongoing affair, financial corruption involving city officials, and clear child endangerment." Detective Walsh closed the folder. "Who filed the anonymous report?" "We believe it was either Jocelyn Merrill or someone acting on her behalf," Patrick said. "I'll need to interview your wife and Miss Kirk Booth." "By all means," James said. "I want them interviewed. I want them investigated. I want my son protected." The detective nodded slowly. "Mr. Merrill, I'm going to be honest with you. This is messy, very messy. But if what you're showing me is accurate, your wife and her associate committed multiple crimes. However, prosecuting this won't be easy. They have resources, and they'll fight back. I'm counting on it," James said quietly. Kirk Booth's world began to collapse on a Thursday morning. The Portland Tribune ran a follow-up article detailing specific examples of delayed permits on the Northwest development, naming Leonard Klein as a potential person of interest in a corruption investigation. By noon, Leonard had been suspended from the Planning Commission pending a full ethics inquiry. Kirk's phone rang 30 times that morning with investors demanding answers. His wife, Christina Booth, the daughter of Leonard's business partner, confronted him about the affair rumors that were now circulating in their social circles. And then Detective Walsh showed up at his office with questions about Danny Merrill. Kirk made his first major mistake. He tried to bluff his way through. "I barely know Jocelyn Merrill," he told the detective. "We met at a charity event. That's all." Walsh showed him the security footage. "This video shows you at her house, grabbing her 8-year-old son and locking him in a closet. Want to revise your statement?" Kirk's lawyer, who'd arrived within minutes, whispered urgently in his ear. "I'd like to consult with my client before we continue." "Take your time," Walsh said pleasantly. "But I should mention that we're also looking into allegations of corruption related to city permits." Funny how things connect, isn't it? After the detective left, Kirk's lawyer was blunt. "You're screwed. The video is damning. The corruption investigation adds weight. And your investors are already fleeing. You need to settle this fast, or you're looking at criminal charges plus financial ruin." Leonard said he'd handle it. Kirk said desperately. He said his daughter would keep quiet. Leonard Klein is busy trying to save his own career. He's not going to protect you. You're the expendable one in this arrangement. Kirk Booth, who'd spent his life believing his wealth and connections made him untouchable, felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. Meanwhile, Leonard Klein sat in his study, reviewing the disaster unfolding around him. The ethics investigation would likely end his political career. His business partner was already distancing himself, furious about the affair with Kirk. And his daughter Jocelyn kept calling, demanding he fix everything. He'd underestimated James Merrill. He'd seen Jocelyn's husband as a small-time businessman, someone who could be managed. He hadn't expected this level of sophisticated counterattack. Leonard's phone rang. His lawyer. Leonard, you need to understand your position. The city has subpoenaed your financial records. They're going to find the consultant fees Kirk's company paid you. You need to cooperate with investigators if you want any chance of avoiding criminal charges. Cooperate? You mean betray Kirk? Kirk is already betraying you. His lawyer called ours 20 minutes ago. He's willing to testify that you solicited bribes in exchange for expediting permits. He's throwing you under the bus to save himself. Leonard felt genuine fear for the first time in decades. What do? We offer James Merrill a deal. Give him everything he wants in the divorce and custody case. In exchange, he backs off the corruption investigation. Absolutely not. I won't let him humiliate this family. Then you'll go to prison. Your choice. Leonard Klein, who'd spent his life making calculated decisions, realized he'd miscalculated catastrophically. Jocelyn Merrill sat in her nearly empty house, surrounded by legal documents. Her father wouldn't return her calls. Kirk had ghosted her completely. Her credit cards were still maxed out, her debts unpaid. And now her lawyer was telling her that James had filed for divorce and sole custody, backed by evidence that made her look like a monster. Can we fight it? She asked desperately. Her lawyer, a tired woman in her 60s, shook her head. Mrs. Merrill, the security footage alone is devastating. Add in your son's testimony, the therapy records, the deleted files. You have no credible defense. If this goes to trial, you'll lose custody completely and possibly face criminal charges. But Kirk said, Kirk Booth is trying to negotiate a plea deal with prosecutors. He's not going to help you. Neither is your father. You're on your own. Jocelyn felt the walls closing in. Everything she'd done had been for security, for money, for a better life. Kirk had promised her freedom from her struggling marriage, had dangled the prospect of wealth and status. Now it was all ashes. What should I do? Accept your husband's terms. He's offering you a choice. Sign over custody, agree to supervised visitation only, and leave Portland. In exchange, he won't pursue criminal charges for child endangerment. It's more generous than you deserve. Leave Portland? That's my home. Your home is gone. Your reputation is destroyed. Your father's career is over. The best you can hope for now is to minimize the damage. That evening, James received a call from Patrick Goldberg. She's signing, his lawyer said. Jocelyn agreed to all terms. Full custody to you, supervised visitation only, and she's relocating to Seattle. Leonard Klein is also settling. He's paying $50,000 toward Danny's therapy and education costs. Kirk Booth is pleading guilty to child endangerment and corruption charges. He'll do 18 months in prison and lose his business license. James closed his eyes. And the development project? Dead. The permits were rescinded. Kirk's investors pulled out completely. The company is bankrupt. Good. James, you won one. Completely. They're all paying for what they did. Not completely, James said quietly. Not until Danny's okay. Later that night, James sat with Danny in their hotel room. They'd looked at apartments earlier that day, found a nice 2-bedroom place with a small yard in a good school district. Elena was helping them move next week. Dad, Danny looked up from his book. Ms. Ryan called. She said I can come back to school on Monday. She said everyone misses me. How do you feel about that? Danny considered. Scared. But also ready, maybe? Dr. Martinez says it's good to face things instead of hiding. Your therapist is right. And I'll be here. Anytime you need me. What about Mom? James had been dreading this question. Your mom made some very bad choices. She hurt you, and that's not okay. You'll see her sometimes, but only when you want to, and always with other adults around to keep you safe. I don't want to see her, Danny said quietly. Not for a long time. Then you don't have to. It's your choice. Danny nodded, then said something that surprised James. Aunt Elena says you did something to make Mom and that man pay for what they did. She says you protected me. Aunt Elena talks too much, James said with a slight smile. Did you? James chose his words carefully. I made sure the truth came out. I made sure people who did wrong things had to face consequences. That's not revenge, that's justice. There's a difference. What's the difference? Revenge is about making yourself feel better by hurting someone. Justice is about protecting people and making sure bad things don't happen again. What I did was about keeping you safe and making sure they couldn't hurt anyone else. Danny thought about this. Did it work? Yes, it worked. Good. Danny returned to his book, but James could see the tension had eased from his son's shoulders. James's phone buzzed with a final text from Glenn Grant. Kirk Booth officially disbarred from real estate development. Leonard Klein resigned from Planning Commission. Federal corruption investigation ongoing. You're clear, no blowback on you. Well played. James deleted the message and put his phone away. Tomorrow they'd start moving into their new apartment. Next week, Danny would return to school. The week after, James would restart his business with a new focus and renewed purpose. Kirk Booth would spend the next year and a half in prison, his reputation destroyed, his wealth gone. Leonard Klein would likely face charges eventually, but even if he avoided jail, his political career was over and his business relationships were poisoned. Jocelyn would spend years rebuilding her life in a new city, marked by the scandal, forever barred from unsupervised contact with her son. They'd all paid. Not with James's fists, not with violence, but with something far more devastating. The systematic dismantling of everything they'd used as weapons against him and his son. James looked at Danny, safe and reading peacefully, and felt the rage that had driven him for weeks finally begin to ease. His son was healing. They had a future, and the people who'd tried to destroy that future had been stopped. Hey Dad, Danny said suddenly, can we get pizza for dinner? Absolutely. Extra cheese. And pepperoni. You got it, buddy. As James ordered their food, he realized he was smiling. A real smile, not the grim determination of the past weeks. They were going to be okay. Not immediately, not perfectly, but eventually. And sometimes, that was enough. The next morning brought unexpected news. Glenn called at 7 a.m., his voice urgent. Turn on Channel 8 News. Now. James flipped on the TV. The morning anchor was mid-story. Development in the Kirk Booth corruption case. Federal investigators have expanded their inquiry to include multiple city officials and developers in what they're calling a widespread bribery scheme. Sources say Booth agreed to cooperate fully in exchange for a reduced sentence, providing evidence against more than a dozen individuals. The screen showed Kirk being led from his house in handcuffs, his expensive suit crumpled, his face haggard. The reporter continued, among those expected to face charges are former Planning Commissioner Leonard Klein and 3 other city officials. The scandal has rocked Portland's development community and raised questions about how long this corruption network has been operating. James watched Leonard Klein's face appear on screen, an old photo from his Planning Commission days, looking confident and powerful. That man was gone now, replaced by someone who'd spend the next years fighting legal battles and bankruptcy. This is bigger than we thought, Glenn said over the phone. Kirk's trying to save himself by giving up everyone. The FBI is involved now. Leonard's going down hard. And Jocelyn? She's small fish. They're not interested in her. She signed the custody papers this morning, by the way. My contact at her lawyer's office confirmed it. You have full legal custody of Danny. It's over. James felt the last knot of tension unwind. Thank you, Glenn. For everything. You did most of it yourself. I just provided the research. But James, what you did, taking them down without breaking any laws yourself, using their own corruption against them, that was brilliant. And terrifying. Remind me never to get on your bad side. I just protected my son. You did more than that. You destroyed 3 people's lives methodically and completely. They'll never recover from this. After hanging up, James walked to the bedroom where Danny was still sleeping. He watched his son's peaceful face, remembering the terrified boy who'd run barefoot through the night 3 weeks ago. They had a long road ahead. Therapy sessions, school reintegration, processing trauma. But they'd walk that road together, and they'd walk it free from the people who'd tried to hurt them. James's phone buzzed again. Elena, saw the news. You did it, Jimmy. You actually did it. He texted back, for Danny. Always for Danny. Still impressive. Scary, but impressive. Want me to bring breakfast when I visit this weekend? Please. Danny's requesting your famous pancakes. Done. Love you both. James pocketed his phone and went to make coffee. Through the hotel window, he could see Portland waking up. Cars on the freeway, lights in distant buildings, a city going about its business, unaware of the small battle that had been fought and won in its midst. By noon, the story had exploded across local media. News vans crowded outside Leonard Klein's house. Reporters ambushed Kirk's lawyer outside the courthouse. The Portland development community was in chaos as everyone scrambled to distance themselves from the scandal. James took Danny to their new apartment to continue unpacking. The boy seemed lighter somehow, as if sensing that the danger had truly passed. "This place is nice," Danny said, arranging his books on a shelf in his new bedroom. "It feels safe." "It is safe. I promise." "Will those people ever come back? Mr. Booth or Mom or Grandpa Leonard?" "No. They can't hurt you anymore." Danny nodded, accepting this. Then, in a small voice, "I'm glad you're my dad." James knelt down and pulled his son into a hug. "I'm glad you're my son." Every single day, they spent the afternoon setting up Danny's room, putting up posters, arranging toys, making the space feel like home. Elena arrived with pizza and helped them hang curtains. They ate together on the living room floor, surrounded by boxes, planning their new life. That night, after Danny had gone to bed, James sat on the small balcony of their new apartment. The city lights stretched out before him. Somewhere out there, Kirk Booth was in a jail cell. Leonard Klein was probably with lawyers, desperately trying to build a defense. Jocelyn was packing her things, preparing to leave Portland in disgrace. He felt no joy in their downfall, but no guilt either. They'd made their choices. They'd hurt an innocent child. They'd tried to cover it up, to use their power and money to escape consequences. James had simply ensured that consequences found them anyway. His phone rang one last time. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "James Merrill." An unfamiliar male voice. "Speaking. This is Richard Shields. I'm Kirk Booth's former business partner. We need to talk." James tensed. "About what?" "I want to thank you. That was unexpected." "Excuse me." "Kirk destroyed 3 of my developments through shady deals and corruption. I tried to fight him legally, but he had Klein protecting him. Then you came along and took him apart in 3 weeks. I just wanted to say, well done. That bastard deserved everything he got. I wasn't trying to help you. I was protecting my son." "I know. That's what makes it perfect. You weren't doing it for money or revenge or business. You were doing it for something that actually mattered. That's why you won." People like Kirk and Leonard, they think money and power make them untouchable. But you proved them wrong. Is there a point to this call? Just this. If you ever need anything, a favor, information, a business contact, you call me. You took down a corrupt network that hurt a lot of people. Some of us remember that. After they hung up, James sat in silence. He hadn't expected gratitude. Hadn't wanted it. But he supposed there was something fitting about Kirk's own business associate thanking James for Kirk's destruction. The balcony door opened behind him. Elena stepped out, holding 2 beers. "Thought you might need this." "Thanks." He took the bottle. "Do you think I went too far?" Elena sat beside him. "You want my honest opinion?" "Always. I think you did what any parent would want to do. But most parents wouldn't have the skill or patience to do it right. You didn't just react. You planned. You strategized. You outmaneuvered them. Was it ruthless? Yes. Was it necessary? Also yes." She paused. "Danny's safe. You're both safe. And 3 people who hurt a child are facing consequences. I don't see anything wrong with that. I destroyed their lives. They destroyed their own lives. You just made sure everyone else knew about it." James sipped his beer. "I keep waiting to feel guilty. But I don't. That's because you did the right thing. Guilt is for when you hurt innocent people. They weren't innocent. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the city lights. Somewhere in one of those distant buildings, Kirk Booth had made the choices that led to his imprisonment. Leonard Klein had made the choices that ended his career. Jocelyn had made the choices that cost her son. And James had made the choice to ensure they all paid for those decisions. Morning came with sunshine and the promise of a fresh start. Danny ate breakfast with real appetite for the first time in weeks. They drove to his school together, and James walked him to the entrance. Carmen Ryan met them at the door, her smile warm. "Welcome back, Danny. We've missed you." Danny looked up at James. "You'll be here when school ends?" "I'll be right here. 3:15, every day." "Okay, Danny took a breath and walked into the school, his backpack bouncing with each step. James watched until his son disappeared down the hallway, then drove to his office. He had a business to rebuild, a life to reconstruct. But for the first time since that terrible phone call in Phoenix, he felt like he could breathe. His phone buzzed with a final text from Patrick Goldberg. All papers filed. Custody is official. Congratulations, James. You won. James saved the message, then deleted every piece of evidence from his phone. The photos, the videos, the correspondence. Glenn had the master files secured in encrypted storage, insurance against any future trouble. But James didn't need them anymore. The war was over. He'd protected his son, destroyed his enemies, and emerged victorious without compromising his principles or breaking laws he wasn't willing to break. Some might call it revenge. James called it justice. And as he sat in his office, beginning to plan for the future he and Danny would build together, he felt at peace. The monsters were caged. The nightmare was over. And ahead lay only possibility. A father and son, survivors of darkness, walking into light. 3 months later, on a Saturday morning, James and Danny stood in front of a small house in a quiet neighborhood. Elena had helped them find it. 3 bedrooms, a backyard, good schools nearby. What do you think, buddy? James asked. Danny stared at the house, then at his father. Is it really ours? Really ours. No one can take it away. Danny's face broke into the biggest smile James had seen in months. Can I pick my room? Absolutely. They walked through their new home, Danny running from room to room, already planning where to put his things. Elena arrived with boxes and takeout. They spent the day unpacking, laughing, building their new life piece by piece. That evening, as Danny slept in his new bedroom, James stood in the backyard. The Oregon sky was clear, stars visible despite the city lights. His phone was silent. No threats, no crisis, no enemies circling. Just peace. Kirk Booth had another 15 months in prison. Leonard Klein faced trial in 6 weeks. Jocelyn sent a card asking to see Danny. James had filed it away for when his son was ready, if ever. They'd all paid. Completely. Finally. And James Merrill, who'd once been just a businessman trying to get home to his family, had become something else. A father who would go to any lengths to protect his child, a strategist who could dismantle enemies without firing a shot, and a man who'd learned that sometimes the most powerful revenge was simply ensuring that justice was served. He went inside, locked the door, and went to check on his sleeping son one last time. Danny was smiling in his sleep. James smiled too. They were home. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.